And everyone, we are now joined by the new Executive Vice President and General Manager of Sonoma Raceway, Brian Flynn. Brian, thank you so much for joining me. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, shoot. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I've spent the better part of the last 30 years in the racing business, primarily 23 or so with Richard Petty in a couple of different senior level capacities. Had a great run through the mid 90s and all the way through 2018, and did a couple of nice little projects after that, and then started helping Speedway Motorsports in a couple of consulting capacities. And then when Jill uh, decided to do a couple things on our own. They said, "Hey, we got a new project for you," and here I am.
So how's it been, transitioning to Sonoma Raceway? Obviously, you got a great scenery with all the wineries in the area, and I'm in Napa, so I'm not too far away from you at the track there. How's it been with the transition and everything?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's been great. I mean, what a facility, what a region. I've been coming here since 1993. I won't date myself. I went to work for the Bechtel family, who's a very San Francisco centric organization, and they got into racing in Charlotte. And through my wife's side of the family, her father-in-law and brothers were, or her father, my father-in-law, and her brothers worked for Bechtel for a long, long time in the family. And that's how I got introduced to them and helped them run their race team before my run with Richard Petty. And we would come out here often, and we started coming to the racetrack for the races. And on the team side, I've been on the team and driving experience side, so I know the track business, I know the team business. I've been mostly a behind the scenes operator, representing the Bechtel family or the Petty family, and now I get to represent the Smith family and this phenomenal race facility. So the actual work transition's been pretty easy. I told the guys on my first GM meeting call back in August. I said I've been on the writing check writing side of the house. It's a lot easier to be on the receiving end than it is on the writing end, but couldn't have been better. So
Gotcha. And Sonoma Raceway is one of the very unique Speedway motorsports venues. What is it about Sonoma that stood out to you? Obviously, it's the only road course, but there has to be other stuff that makes it stand apart. So what made it stand out to you as something that said, "Oh, I want this opportunity."
yeah, well, like I said, I had the luxury of doing some consulting work, during Jill's era. Right before that, when they acquired a driving school, when Steve Page was still here, and then COVID hit, and then Jill came in, and I continued to help just look at and assess that opportunity and how do we make it better? What do we want to do? So I really got to know the people and the team here, and that's probably one of the big pieces of the puzzle. And then, as you know, Kyle, the facility and what they've done over the years, and then more recently with Turn 11, and the combination of a great NASCAR event, NHRA event, and then really, which speaks to a heavy part of my background is track utilization, Ferrari Challenge, AMG Academy, all the daily, weekly, rentals that happen on this great race at this great racetrack. You put all those pieces together, then take wine country and all the things that you guys know from being endemic to the region. I mean, it was, if there ever was a no brainer, this was probably it from my background, at least from my perspective.
You mentioned, coming in with the Smith family. Marcus Smith has built, and his dad built a giant in Speedway Motorsports. But you came in right when it was announced that they were going to do repave. That was announced last year at the right before Las Vegas. How is the repave going? Do you have any updates on how that's going and how it's progressing?
Yeah, it happened. It happened. We had started to talk about it, and because of the sports car use and the Ferraris and velocity and all that, 300 days of track utilization outside of our big promoted events, the competitors kept asking, when are you going to repave? Because I think we repaved in 2002 or 2003. roughly 20 years ago. And obviously NASCAR is a little different with the heavier car versus the nature of the sports car. And I think, the Ferrari guys and Jeff O'Neill at Velocity got to Marcus around concours in early August and started, pinging him, if you will. And one day out of the blue, we got a phone call in September and said, "Hey, I think we're going to repave, the racetrack that you're now running." I'm like, "What?" And it just came a couple of years, earlier than we had anticipated. So we had a last laps event mid-December, and they started milling, I think, December 26th or 27th. And the track is completely milled right now. I'm looking at it right now, and we're getting, knock on wood, weather permitting, we should start laying down some asphalt early next week. So we're on schedule. Again, if you remember last January, I was here doing my consulting work, and it was a brutal January and February with the mudslides and the weather. And, we're optimistic that we're going to have a week or two of enough decent weather to get the track paved so we can then let it cure and start to see some on track, tire tests and things of that nature early March. That's kind of our target. So it's going great.
So March is the plan to have the pavement done and start to do some tire testing and season the track a little bit. Is this all for the plan of the Fanatec GT World Challenge, and then obviously getting some races on that before the NASCAR Cup Series weekend? Take me through that. What's the plan with everything progressing up to NASCAR weekend?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think you pegged it, is to let it cure and start to do like a Goodyear tire test and a NASCAR test. And while we're, getting the kinks ironed out and get some rubber down on the racetrack with some of the events in April and May, and be ready for our big weekend, June 7, 8, and 9. That's exactly it.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to that event. I'm sure you've heard NASCAR is my favorite event weekend of the year,
Love it. Love
being
it.
from Sonoma, being from Napa, that's only 20 minutes away from me. But anyway, you spoke a lot about Jill. What type of relationship did you have with her? Did you guys compare notes before you took over there? Take me through that kind of relationship also there.
Yeah, Jill and I have a great relationship. I was working under her direction for those 2 years, doing the consulting work for the school and the kart business, and all kind of driving experience related. Obviously, her background, she comes from NASCAR, heavy NASCAR, was a great ambassador, great operator. And, I talk to her regularly. We stay in touch. She's a consultant for us right now. And that works great. And she's not only consulting here for Sonoma, but she still has tremendous ties to NASCAR. And I think as the Smiths and the Frances and our two companies, work closer together, she's a perfect fit and a natural fit to do things like that with Kevin Camper and some of our senior leadership on how can we take best practices, both on the track sanctioning body side, the operator side, the fan experience, and all things, operating experiences across the system. How do we do things together to better leverage the two organizations? And she's a perfect person for that. So I talk to her very regularly and rely on her a lot.
That's awesome. She did a great job there. And I'm curious.
Fantastic.
I'm curious. You're clearly looking to build your own deal at Sonoma Raceway. With the repave, is the rumble strips going to be changed to your college color at some point? Since we're already in on this, that got to get rid of the green and gold now. Get your college colors.
Yeah, no, this isn't about me. It's about the racetrack. So it's funny you mentioned that. Steve Page had the Bears, those colors, and I think Jill's was more. It happened to be coincidental with her college and just the nature of our green and gold that blends in with the terrain. And she took some credit for that, but she's very much about the track and everybody but her. So I think we're going back. I don't know if I can reveal it, but it'll be more along the lines of motorsports oriented. Perhaps you might see a lot of red and white in the more traditional rumble strip. They call them berms. We still call them rumble strips. I don't know about you, but we call them rumble strips. And so we're probably heading more in that direction. We're still going to keep the the green and the gold. We like that color. We like that scheme, and because it blends in with what's going on out here. But yeah, we've got some cool things in store, and I think the legacy is about the racetrack, right? And I'm an operator at heart, and we're in here, with what Steve Page started and ran for 30 plus years, and then Jill took it to the next level. I mean, you have this awesome. I know you've been here and seen Turn 11, and that just raised our game huge. And then all the improvements that Jill made, both on and off the track with the staff. I mean, I've got it probably the easiest out of, Steve and Jill, and I just hope to hang on to the steering wheel and keep it off the fence, and just keep putting Sonoma Raceway out front under the philosophy of Marcus and the leadership team here at Speedway Motorsports. So I think I've got the easiest task ahead of me.
Talk to me about the Velocity Invitational, because during the Velocity Invitational, all of a sudden there were these interesting videos coming out that caught. I'm just a motor racing fan at heart, so that caught me seeing Chase Johnson and a few other guys ripping sprint cars around turn 11. How did that come about? And is there any plan to do that again with the repave racetrack? Because I'd got to see that if possible.
Yeah, that was fun. It was a lot of fun. I think Jeff came to us and said, "Hey, we want to do this demonstration. We're trying to do some unique things. We love Jeff O'Neill. We're so happy that he's here and that event's here. We had a great event. They were here before, went to Laguna, and I think hopefully this is their permanent home. We both want it to be that. We had a phenomenal event. And I think they came up with, the World of Outlaw type of, let's do the demonstration. Whether it goes any further than that, I don't know. It was very cool. We did that practice session that night. It was under the lights. Just seeing those cars, the wing sprint cars. I mean, I'm a motorsports guy, right? And all through and through. And that's some cool stuff. So I don't have anything on the drawing board, but we were all very, very psyched to do that demonstration.
You mentioned you're a motorsports guy. That leads me right into this next thing. Last year, Sonoma Raceway was a very big sponsor of Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet's High Limit Sprint Car Series. Is that going to continue into this year? And obviously, the High Limit Series will be coming out west this year to Placerville, to Chico, to Thunderbolt, a bunch of different tracks all around. Is that going to be something that you guys kind of continue with your support of Kyle Larson / High Limit Sprint Car Series?
Yeah, we're going to support it in any way we can to help Kyle in that series, because Kyle is obviously from the region and he's a big part of the sport. Just like a lot of other guys that are still around and have, made their mark at Sonoma, and we're always very sensitive to those people. I don't have anything specific to add right now, but yes, we very much are more, collaborative than we are like, this is our place and leave us alone. If it's good for motorsports, it's good for us. That's kind of the way we've always looked at it. No different than the team side. As the teams exist every weekend. They're in the same area. The carnival comes to town. It's a co-opetition, right? Everyone at some point is going to need a hand and some assistance from another team. And while everything tries to remain proprietary, the sport usually finds its way to help each other invariably. That's what's so great about the sport.
One thing that I think is interesting is during NASCAR weekend, we have the Sprint Car Challenge Tour race going on at Petaluma at the same time as the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Sonoma, and it seems like it's like you can't be two places at once. Is there some way down the line to make that maybe work for fans who want to attend both races? Because this year it's starting at 5. Like, is there going to be a way down the road that you guys will work with the CW, the TV partner coming in next year, to maybe make that happen to where fans could do both races?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. It's probably a little early, but we're interested to see how that shakes out, right? If you kind of look at where we fall and if the program flows, both from the primary broadcast standpoint, going back to the Cup side, if you take the Fox piece and then mix in Amazon and Turner and then go into NBC, we would probably, if the schedule remained exactly the same, we would be in the Amazon window. So, that those discussions, I aren't really developed yet, but they're beginning those discussions, and I'm sure all the jockeying will start. And I just said, hey, just tell us where we're going, and we're going to run a tremendous race. And I think those are for the Mike Birches and Kevin Campers and the leadership, and both on our standpoint, NASCAR, as well as the TV partner. So I don't really haven't heard anything yet.
Interesting. I was just curious from a racing fan's
Yeah, no, I agree.
perspective. But you know, you also mentioned you're a racing fan of just all motor racing. How close is the relationship with Sonoma Raceway to all the dirt tracks in the area? Obviously, you have Petaluma, which is just a ways down the road. Then up north in Sacramento, you have Placerville. You know, you have Chico. You have a bunch of these different places. What's the relationship like with Sonoma Raceway helping these other dirt tracks like promote events? Is that something that could be coming down the line at all?
Yeah, like in my capacity in the first, it's 5 months under my belt. We haven't really focused on that per se, to be candid, but yeah, if we can help those series and those, racetracks, it's incumbent upon us to help do that to the extent that we can. So we're very open to that. I would say stay tuned and give me a little few more months under my belt, and we'll see what we can do. But like I said, motorsports is motorsports, and we support all of that to the extent that we can.
Gotcha. What event are you looking most forward to in your first year here in charge? I mean, you're gonna have a lot of events. You're gonna have the GT World Challenge, NASCAR, NHRA, Velocity. What event are you looking most forward to?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, that's like they're all important. It's like your kids, right? They're all important. I think most people would be surprised. You know this, but we're known, outside the immediate region for NASCAR and HRA primarily, but we run close to 300 days a year with all these different kind of events and track utilization, be it on the kart track, be it on the road course, just turn 11 events with hot laps and press launches. So they're all really important. You've got the ones you mentioned, and then you've got Velocity, and you've got AMG, and you've got Aston Martin coming back. Some of these haven't been announced yet. They're signed, but we're just getting ready to kind of make some really cool announcements on who's coming to the track. And so they're all important, because when you look at outside of our primary events, it takes all of those other events to make the rest of the business work, right? And I think that's where, going back to one of your questions early on, like if you look at the Speedway Motorsports track facilities, they all are similar and different, right? So some tracks have obviously multiple cup events and other big promoted events. We have one. Atlanta has two. Texas has two when you count COTA. And then you take Las Vegas, which has many events, two big events. Then you've got Electric Daisy Carnival, and then they've got some big endemic tenants on the outside road course with AI technology companies that are renting the track year round, and all their track utilization, and then their drag strip. So all the way down to Nashville, which has some great race, and Dover, and all the tracks, our sister tracks. So not to get on my soapbox there, but we have a lot of day-to-day track utilization that's really important to the business.
Interesting. And you mentioned all the sister tracks. Of all the sister tracks, is like Las Vegas the one that Sonoma collaborates the most with? I just went to Vegas last year for the fall race for the South Point 400 weekend. That was a blast. But besides the point, I noticed a lot of people that go back and forth between Sonoma and Vegas. Is that a track that you guys share a lot of people and works side by side with?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, so we actually have a great, Mike Birch and the team have put together like a best practices kind of playbook, shared services kind of relationship between all the tracks. So, for example, our marketing and ticket support and PR comms, operations staff, we identify different racetracks, and we go help our brother and sister tracks. And Vegas is obviously geographically the closest to us. So we share, for example, our ticketing, our VP of ticket sales that handles our local retail ticket sales. Emily Zimmerman resides in Las Vegas, and she oversees both those ticket sales revenue centers. And then we have a local, Chris Palmer, handles our ticket ops, and we've kind of got a business model that works. And then our ops guys, they will go to, for example, they were in Charlotte, they'll go to Coda, and we'll take some key team members and move them around. And it really does a couple of things. It builds camaraderie between the tracks, which is huge. And everybody loves it on both sides of the house. And then it's a best practices. What can we learn from things that they're doing and Mark Faber's doing in Texas, or Mike DeToyan's doing in Dover? And what are the nuances in New Hampshire with David McGrath? And how do we do all those things and make a better mousetrap across all the tracks? And with all the nuances, there's a lot of crossover, and then there's definite distinct nuances that are different and unique to each track.
That's interesting. So building off of, kind of what Jill had done here with bringing the Xfinity series in, how do you plan to kind of take, NASCAR weekend and put your own touch on it this year? Like, obviously we won't have NASCAR announcements coming till later on in the year, but, what are some things you have in mind to maybe just put your own signature touch on it? Cause you're the man in charge for this first NASCAR weekend this year.
Yeah, I've got my rookie yellow stripe on the bumper here, so I've got to get through. We joke about that. I would say, like I said before, Jill left us in a great spot, right? She built it up. She came from NASCAR. We built Turn 11. I mean, phenomenal building. And now it's just a matter of improving and just incrementally the fan experience and all the little creature comforts. And how can we be more efficient with parking and getting people to their seats and around the property? And things like that probably would be more under the radar things while we let the show be the show, right? So I think we've talked about this internally where, we've tried to, and we've gone through a couple iterations of, you've got race day, you bring in talent for pre-race, and, the Coke 600 pre-race is different than our pre-race, right? The Coke 600s, the race starts at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You've got all day to build it up. It's, Memorial Day weekend. It's a big, it's a military-based, U.S. themed day. So they need content here. Our race starts at 12 or 12:30. By the time the fans get here at 9 or 10 o'clock, and they get to the fan zone, they want to mill around and get some autographs signed and get in the garage area, wherever they can get to. And then you got driver introduction. There's not a ton of time. So across the system, we're looking at, all right, what's our pre-race entertainment look like, track to track to track? So we're just dialing those in and try to make it to where the fans, we make it easy for them to get around. We make everything accessible and just improve the friction and eliminate the friction points. I would say that's kind of our first order of business, because when we have built Turn 11 and Jill's 2.5-year tenure, I mean, she raised the bar from we came out of COVID, and then raised that, getting it back to where it was before. And now it's just continued to improve and put Sonoma Raceway out first and foremost. We're trying to get fans more accessibility to the drivers with the DEP program, and they want to do that, and their demands, the demands on them are tough with, sponsor commitments and race day obligations. So we just want to try to make that as open as we possibly can. So it's kind of a long-winded answer, but there's not one specific big silver bullet item that I see. It's just a lot of little things, and how do we improve and make sure we're looking places in great shape, just from an appearance standpoint and ease of transportation, because you come here, there's really two primary access points.
Mhm.
There's 7, there's gate 1, and you got the 50 acres of the campgrounds, and the camping aspect here is, I hadn't really paid that much attention to it. That is, I mean, it's pretty amazing, the camping, not only here, but at a lot of racetracks at Speedway Motorsports, really across the whole NASCAR ecosystem. And I knew it existed because you roll into the 500 and you come through the tunnels and just see flags and campers everywhere. You just know it, but I knew it from a different side. Now being on the track side, you're like, holy cow, man, this is crazy.
You mentioned, changes that you're seeing. One of the changes that I have seen is that you guys will have a new campground for NASCAR weekend. How did that come about? And I believe it's turn one, correct? When they go up the
Yeah,
hill?
we call it unofficially, it's Bobby's Bowl, but yeah, it's a turn one campsite. So we're always being charged with from corporate, and Kevin Camper charged us with, all right, find some inventory. What else can we do? How else can we enhance our fan experience, and are there opportunities to build those out? And we kind of took a drone view and said, where else can we add some killer campsites? Because we don't want to build any more buildings at this point after turn 11 in the near future. And Bobby O'Gorman, our head of ops, he's been here 24 years. He started as an intern. He's like our poster child. He's awesome. And we got together, and Pete Roger, our head of sales, and the three of us got together and said, what can we do? And lo and behold, we created these 20 campsites, and then we picked up another 20 on a couple of perimeter hospitality lots, and we created about 40 campsites that are on track, if you will, great visibility campsites. And that's kind of how we came about that. So, and those are, I think, all but sold out.
Interesting, interesting. And also regarding NASCAR weekend, I see right now the Xfinity race on Saturday does not have a sponsor. It's listed as the Sonoma 250s. That's going to be one of the first orders of business here, as we're kind of getting the new year off to a start, and then the Cup Series season is going to start in LA here soon, and then Daytona 2 weeks later. Is that something that's kind of first up on the bucket list here as far as nailing that sponsor down?
Yeah, that we're in heavy discussions. We think we've got that kind of nailed down. We've got I can't say when. It should be fairly soon, hopefully by the time the Clash comes out, or in the next 30 days. But we feel pretty locked on that. And more to come on that. But yeah, that's important piece, and we feel pretty good about it right now. Although
It
it's done and signed and inked, and as you know, in this business, it's never done, but we feel pretty good about it.
Interesting. And what are your thoughts on being the only points paying race in California this year? There's no Fontana. It's just the LA Clash for the LA market. What is your thoughts on being the only points paying race this year in California?
Yeah, man, what's not to not, man? We love it. We take that as a sense with a lot of pride, and we want to put on a fantastic weekend for the fans in the region, and the competitors, right? And the sponsors and everybody that comes along with that. So, we've actually got our big kickoff meeting tomorrow. Ironically, we got 150 days out from our NASCAR weekend starting tomorrow. So we've been prepping. We always prep. The race is over, we catch our breath, and we go out with ticket renewals right away. And that's actually during the event, and so it never really stops. We do take a bit of a pause, July, August, September, not from a ticket sales standpoint, but we've got our ideas, and we had the campsites and things like that. Then how can we improve, and how can we do all that? But now we're kind of getting into, we got 5 months out basically, and it's going to be here before you know it. And it's hard to believe that the Clash and all that's here. I mean, it's here, 30 days out.
I've got to ask you one question. Everybody who's not located in this region of the country thinks that Sonoma Raceway should be put in March or late February. Was that ever a discussion for this upcoming season for this season with no Fontana? And take me through how we were able to keep our date that I'm happy we are keeping.
Yeah, so are we. I think last at the end of when they were working on the schedule in the summer, and as they kind of got into, when I came into my role in early August, they had talked about a slight adjustment, which happens every year with a couple different tracks. But I've never heard that we were looking at February or March. I think the weather, in the campground, it would kill the campground because it's soggy until May. Like, it would
Hmm.
probably largely be unusable before April, because we did kick that around. Like, what if we did get moved up maybe to a May date? I don't think it was ever really contemplated before May, but we were happy that they kept it where it is, and where it hopefully will be, because it's a perfect slot. we think for us.
Well, yeah, I had to ask that question because, like I said, I've seen it all over. Everybody who doesn't live here, thinks Sonoma needs to be on the West Coast swing, and it's just like if you don't live here, the weather is an issue. So
Yep.
you saying that the campgrounds are flooded, that's a good amount of revenue for you guys. How important is camping for you guys during a NASCAR weekend?
Camping's huge. I mean, I think it does a couple of things, not just from a revenue standpoint. It brings the fan and the family. It's more in tune to families, and people are coming as a vacation, and they're camping and they're here for 4 days. They come in Thursday and check out Monday, most of them, and not only here but across the, like I said before, the Speedway Motorsports system. I mean, it's very important to the company, and it's pretty simple. It's very important to the company.
That is all I've got for you, Brian. Thank you so much for your time today. And
Well, thank you.
we will pick this up again for the NASCAR weekend preview. We kind of hit on some early stuff there, but as storylines start to develop and all that kind of stuff, I'm gonna get you on another Zoom meeting and we'll discuss, the NASCAR season as a whole and preview your race weekend in more in depth in May-ish.
Yeah, thank you for your time. We love it. Call me anytime. As you can tell, we're motorsports junkies, and we love talking about not only our facility but the sport and all forms of motorsport, because that's kind of runs through our blood. So
It's
appreciate
been
the time.